All right, let's talk a little bit about Halloween 5 as we kick off part 2 here. Very strange. It's my understanding from what I've watched and read that they really rushed 5 out right after 4, which is unfortunate because 4 was very good, I think, as far as revitalizing the series, and then they probably should have taken a little bit more time on 5. So it definitely kind of feels rushed, and it's strange. The main character, Jamie, is now kind of like been traumatized. So she's kind of mute, which could make it interesting, but it makes it kind of weird. They do flesh out a little bit more of the whole cult thing. That will go more into 6, and we'll talk about that when we get there, which wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. The mask was better, I think, than 4 was. It still was a little different, but I still think it was better. But I mean, again, Donald Pleasance, really good. Carries the movie. Jamie, the child that played Jamie, which I can't remember her name for the moment. Very good. But yeah, it's kind of forgettable. A lot of people give it slack too because of the other characters, like the throwaway characters, are really bad. And then, of course, they kill off some of the main characters from 4 who survived. But, I mean, it is what it is. It kind of wraps everything nicely. It shows you how when he falls down the shaft at the end 4, he really didn't. And it's a bunch of different crazy stuff. So I would skip. If there's one to skip over, I would definitely say this one's probably my least favorite. Well, no, I can't say that. It's not quite my least favorite, but it almost is. Least favorite being 8, with the exception of Rob Zombie, because his aren't. I don't count his actually in the series, but this one's not too bad. I guess if you have to, take a watch. Don't expect a lot, though. Definitely 5 is definitely a throwaway. All right, we're getting to one of my favorite ones here, Halloween 6. What can I say? It's a strange that I like this one. A lot of people don't. And it had problems because it had to be redone. Basically, I think they screened it. The audience didn't like it, so they did a bunch of reshoots and kind of repackaged it. So there were almost 2 different versions. And you can definitely tell that something wasn't right in the movie. But it still worked, which was interesting. But for some reason, 6 has always sat really well with me. But more so for the original cut, because I didn't see the producer's cut or the original cut until recently when it was released. So, but 6 still is good to me. The characters are kind of weird, the way they reestablish it, but I like it because it feels really dark. Interesting enough, Paul Rudd was his introduction, or Rudd, I think it's Rudd, was his introductory role here. So strange. It's always actors or good actors always get their starts horror movies, but that's a whole other subject. So, but anyways, this is his first movie. Didn't do particularly well. Was a little off, but I mean, it still kind of worked in some ways. Good role for the main female character. She does really well, and the kid did pretty well as far as playing somebody creepy. But it's nice to see. It was good and bad. I like the whole idea of kind of explaining Michael Myers' backstory, why he is how he is. They go into the Thorn and some stuff that they built on 5 that they really moved into on 6. But other people didn't. I do. In the original or the theatrical release, there was a lot more gore added because it was felt it was lacking in the original producer's cut. Whereas now that I've seen the producer's cut, I can see what they were talking about. There was a lot more about the Thorn and that whole thing with the guy in the all black. I think the producers cut, the story is just better. It's strange. It just seems to work better, and I accept it more as a movie. And I think it's not so much a horror movie as it is like a suspense/drama, which is really what I enjoyed about the producer's cut. Now, I could see why they probably reshot it, but I think that was probably not the best. But either way, they're still kind of good. The big difference is that you get basically 2 different endings. One ending where Paul Rudd beats the shit out of Michael Myers, and it's kind of a strange ending. You don't really know what's going on. And then there's the original ending where they find out how to stop Michael's powers and basically render him useless. But the cool thing about that one is the Thorn curse is passed on to Loomis, which would have set up more sequels, but he also died during the production of this, or during the post-production. So I don't know. It's kind of nice in the original cut where you don't really expect to see him, but it's also kind of, I would have rather have liked him to left the original one alone. But mixed match of both. So I do like 6. I still think 6 is one of my favorites. Call me crazy, but I think it's one of those. Other than the first one, you should definitely watch 6. So far, if you're keeping tabs, 1, 4, and 6 are the ones to go for, in my opinion. But now we're gonna move on to 7, which not bad, but I got some problems. Okay, so let's zoom on to 7. It was the 20th anniversary of the original, which they dubbed H2O, which should have just been called Halloween 7, but it's whatever. This movie attempts to rewrite the history of the whole franchise so that 1 and 2 really are the only ones that exist. Because if you followed along with the other ones, Jamie is the daughter of Laurie, which they don't ever mention in this movie, so we're assuming it just didn't happen. And kind of the way it works, this is like the 3rd Halloween. So that's interesting, but at least they got Jamie Lee Curtis back in it. Now, again, just like 6, there was some real production problems, and the biggest gripe, the ultimate gripe that I have with this one is the mask. Now, my understanding about it is that during the shooting of the film, they had 3 different masks that they were using, and they just kept switching them. I don't know who made all the decisions or what, but some footage was shot with one, some footage shot with the other, and they're pretty noticeable differences. So it really fucking drives me crazy because none of them really look good. So God, it's just, and the fact that they had to switch up. It would have been one thing if they had left it alone, but they had to switch it up. So that just sucked. But that aside, Jamie Lee Curtis did good. The actors, the throwaway actors in this movie is almost as bad as in 5, which is not good. Josh Hart, I think his name is in this movie. He's not a bad actor, but he's not a good actor either. It was really nice to see the showdown between Laurie and Michael Myers. I think it really worked well, and that's what you're looking for. But at the same time, too, other than that, there's some stuff that I've read and watched where the music didn't really work. It's a strange setup at the end. It just doesn't. The mood doesn't feel right, and I've heard other people complain too that yet again it was one of those, they didn't get the mood, the sound effects, and the music all right. But either way, it was still a good final battle. So essentially, spoilers on this one again. Laurie basically takes Michael out. They try to take him away in an ambulance because they think he's dead. She obviously doesn't believe it because she's learned from now. Chases down the ambulance, runs it off the road. Michael gets pinned up between a tree and the car that they were in, and she chops his head off. And that should have been the end of the series. But of course, you can't just let anything go. When they find a crazy way to bring him back in the next one, which I don't know how they did, and I'm sure that wasn't what they really wanted. The actors, I think, who signed on to this, but it is what it is, and it's still a good movie. I think it could have been better. I think this is the first Halloween I ever got to see in the actual theaters, but it wasn't. It's not really my favorite. I watched it. I think you should watch it in the series to give you some closure on some stuff. But I never really go back and watch this one at all. It just doesn't do it for me. But again, doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It's one of those ones that's only really worth one watch. But again, definitely check it out just so you can kind of see how the series, I guess, should have ended if it was like a real part 3. All right, we're on to one of the worst ones. Or actually, this is the worst. Okay, number 8, Halloween Resurrection. Bad casting. Busta Rhymes, Tyra Banks, all of them except for the female lead. What the hell were we thinking? Just not worth it. Now I will say this to give it a little bit of credit here. The concept was not bad. However, I do believe it was a little bit ahead of its time. The whole voyeuristic cameras everywhere type thing was just coming into play, and I think had it been had they waited a little longer for it to come into the everyday workings of people, I think it would have went over better. But it just was a little bit too ahead of its time again, like I was saying. So, but I mean, it is what it is. But it was not executed well either. So, but anyways, the bottom line, how this works is they have some people, kids go into Michael Myers' house. They put the cameras on him and kind of see, like this really cool pay-per-view type scenario when they have body cams and cameras in there. And they also kind of stage it a little bit so they get some scares out of it with like fake Michael Myers and all that stuff. So it kind of worked, but it definitely didn't feel like a real Halloween movie, and there wasn't any real standout moments. But I guess if there was one big moment that everyone has a problem with, was the conclusion. Jesus. Buster Rhymes basically karate kicking the shit out of Michael Myers and taking him out may have been one of the worst things I've ever seen. I mean, are you shitting me? That's how he goes out. He's been just fucking horrible. But, one other good thing, the only good part of this movie, maybe the only part you want to watch of it, is Jamie Lee Curtis's send-off in the very beginning of the movie. At this point, they tell you that when they cut off, or when she cut off his head, it really wasn't Michael Myers. Somehow, at some point, he switched with one of the medics, which I don't know how the hell that happened. But again, they're just making shit up. So they switched. So that in the end, they show him taking the mask off the head she cut off, and it was really not Michael Myers. So that drove her insane, and they put her away in a psychiatric unit. And basically, you catch up with her where she's like I said, at that psychiatric unit or hospital, whatever you want to call it. And Michael comes back for her. So she tries to run away. She gets up to the roof. And basically there's a very nice send-off with her being stabbed and killed by Michael. And it just works. I don't know why. That seems to be the best part of the movie. Everything else is just really bad. But I guess in the end, after Busta Rhymes kicks the shit out of Michael Myers, there was some really cool ideas, I guess, for doing another one, like him waking up burned, which was actually pretty cool at an autopsy, which you don't really see. But I mean, that was shown a couple times in like Friday the 13th. There was another outtake one where he grabbed somebody out of the sewer. I mean, there were some cool ideas, but just the execution and the characters was just so bad. Again, this is I feel the worst one of the whole series, which is probably why they kind of stopped him after this. And I don't think you should watch it at all. Basically turns Michael Myers into a fucking clown. Okay, and we're just gonna do a quick wrap up here on the new Halloween. So Halloween 9 and 10, I guess if you're keeping track, which really they're 1 and 2. So I call them remake, call them what you want. First off, I don't like Rob Zombie's work. I find it's just not my taste. It's just too gory. I get what he's going for, but I don't care for it at all. I can kind of respect like House of a Thousand Corpses and a couple of his other ones, but I just, again, I don't like it. That's not my kind of films. So going into this, I didn't have high hopes when I heard he had the job. Now, I will say this. I was really concerned that it was going to be stupid. Kind of like how the Friday the 13th remake was not good and the Nightmare on Elm Street one. Neither of them are really memorable. Nightmare on Elm Street being the worst of them. But this, I watched it and I gotta be honest, I thought it was good. I couldn't believe that Rob Zombie was able to cobble together an interesting story like this. And he gave a lot more time with the child, or the younger Michael Myers, giving him a little backstory into why he is how he is. And then, but on the other side of it, the one thing that I didn't like a lot about it was the level of violence. And call me whatever. I just don't. I don't like the way Rob Zombie shoots a lot of his scenes with that shit. So I think it was a little over the top. But with the story being as compelling as it was, it worked just enough for me to keep watching it and to actually say, it wasn't a bad movie, but I still don't care for it. I don't know if I could recommend it. You could live without watching it, but I mean, I can't really say it's too bad. So good idea though for bringing back the series and trying to rethink the whole thing. And then of course he made his sequel, part two. So what I did like about part two was that he did kind of take some of the influence a little bit, at least in an interesting dream sequence, which was interesting, from the original part two, where they're in the hospital, which was actually kind of cool to see, but also confusing because it was like 20 minutes of at the beginning of the movie. You think it's just going to pick up from where like the second one did, but I don't know if it came up as being like a dream or what it was, but it didn't really happen. But anyways, it was interesting to see that reimagined. But then it goes off in its own little tangent, and that's Halloween 2 is where it really all came apart. Any sort of original thought that he had on Halloween 1, he destroyed in Halloween 2. Again, more violence, just pile it on, lack of story, I guess maybe to make up for it, I don't know. So poured on more shit, more killing, whatever. Then mix in the characters are really going crazy. The main lead from the first one comes back. She does good, but it just doesn't seem right. Only really good bright star in this. Again, it was nice to see because she never really got her final finished. I thought Danielle Harris, the who played Jamie in 4 and 5, she didn't get to reprise her role in 6 because of I don't know if it was a money thing or what exactly it was, but she just didn't get it. So she was introduced in the first one, and she was also in this one. And I think she's always done well in both of them, even in other work that I've seen her. So it was nice to see her have a proper send-off. And Rob Zombie paid a lot of respect to that, and that I can get behind and kind of say he's a stand-up guy for that. So it was nice to see her go out in a, I guess, bad, good way, whatever you want to call it. But the biggest problem with 2 is the fucking ending, okay? And I'm not exactly sure how it all went down, but I believe there are 2 versions. There may even be 3. Basically, they all center though around an old abandoned house. The cops chase him down, surround him. It's like a Texas standoff, right? And then the main character and Michael are in there. Dr. Loomis shows up to try to help negotiate and get her out safely. But basically what they work up through with 1 and 2, kind of like what they did with Jamie, is that Laurie is going to be like the new replacement for Michael. So she has a lot of psychotic, weird flashes of the shit that happened to him. So basically ends up being that a lot of it's in her head and it's not really happening, but Michael's still there. And I think all the versions you get, Loomis dies usually at the hands of Michael Myers. But the way they kind of changes is what happens at the very, very end. Like one time, Michael comes out and he's got like no mask on and nothing but hair all over him, and he says something and then they just shoot the shit out of him and kill him, which I thought was crazy. When are you ever going to see Michael Myers say a fucking word? And it wasn't even anything like good. He speaks. That just totally ruined it. And then I think even the music they played over it was really shitty. And then there's another version where she comes out wearing Michael's mask with the knife as though it's been transferred to her. And I can't remember. I think there's a third version that has a mixture of that. But either way, it was the ending where you see her crazy and taking over the mantle of Michael isn't bad. But just that whole end scene just didn't do it for me. And that's probably why there's a couple different versions floating out there for some particular reason, but all of them are pretty bad. Halloween 2 out of all of them, well, not all of them, but out of those 2, definitely don't watch. Just watch Halloween 1, be done with it. The second installment was not as good, and probably why they just stopped after that. So to wrap up, I mean, hopefully this was entertaining a little bit, gives you my thoughts on the Halloween series, something that I really have enjoyed over the years. I'm really looking forward to part 11, I believe is what it is. I've heard some speculation about it, but I definitely believe that they're going forward with it. So that will be cool. I'm sure once we get more details, it should be really interesting. But I'm really looking forward to Michael Myers coming back. You know, if if they can muster up enough money to do a fucking Friday the 13th movie and a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which were both shitty, they should be able to do another Halloween movie. So definitely looking forward to it. Hey, thanks for sticking with me. And remember to go to multitapped.com to see all the stuff we're doing for October. And remember, happy Halloween.